Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Croccast podcast. I'm your host, Nate, along with my co-host, Matt.
Hey.
And today we're joined by master student and box turtle researcher, Emma Browning. Emma, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, Emma, you want to go over a little bit about how you first got into reptiles?
Yeah, so I grew up on a ranch in Texas, and so I was always outside. And so I ran into a lot of wild animals, and that included snakes, box turtles, amphibians, even like toads. And I always just thought they were really interesting. It's helpful that my mom supported this weird fascination that I had. And my sister was actually really into biology as well. And my oldest sister is about like 6 years older than I am, and she would take these biology classes when I was like really young, like in kindergarten, and she'd come back and tell me about what she'd learned. And one thing that she told me that had me sold on reptiles and amphibians was that frogs and toads use their eyeballs to like push down their food when they swallow. I thought that was like the weirdest, coolest thing. So yeah, that's really what sparked my interest, was just how I grew up and that I had support through like my mom and my sister. And after that, I actually, anytime I would eat, I would actually like close my eyes because I thought I was helping like the food go down by closing my eyes. So yeah, that's really where it started.
So, you currently are doing your master's, finishing up your master's at the University of Georgia. So, and you're currently doing your master's research with box turtles at the Savannah River Ecology Lab, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you want to go over a little bit about what exactly your research is about and what it entails?
Yeah, so we're looking to see if we can release turtles that have been confiscated from the illegal wildlife trade, if we can put them back out into the wild. And the way we're doing this is, well, I'll start. Turtles are declining worldwide, and a huge problem is the illegal pet trade. And it's actually happening in our very own backyard. The eastern box turtle, which is what I'm studying, is being collected from the wild and being sold to the illegal pet trade at an alarming rate. So populations are vanishing. And so law enforcement, they are confiscating a lot of these animals that are being exported, but this is just the first step to solving the problem. When they have these huge confiscations, animals are either euthanized or they're put in facilities to live out the rest of their lives. And so we're trying to find a solution to see if we can actually put these animals back out into the wild so wild populations don't completely vanish. And so we have a bunch of turtles that were confiscated from the illegal pet trade, and we've been looking at their movements for the past 2 years, as well as their health and survival. So that's what my project has been looking at.
What would be the main target destination of most of these turtles that are being illegally collected?
So like where they're being collected from, or?
That and where they're usually being shipped to.
Okay, so the southeast is like a huge target because we have such a diversity in turtle species. But a lot of them they're being sold to the pet trade, but a lot of them go overseas. China is a big destination for turtles. Everyone loves box turtles. They're really colorful. They have personality, so people want them as pets. But they're being exported to other countries, but I think China is a big one.
I had heard, I don't know if this is true, I had heard that box turtles, like eastern box turtles, are like, I don't remember exactly where. I think it was like Mississippi. Like they're native there, and then everywhere else they're invasive. They're technically like invasive in most places. Is that true?
I don't. No. Box turtles are native throughout the South or the Eastern U.S. There's actually a lot of subspecies. There's 6 subspecies that are in the U.S., but yeah, no, they're native to this area.
That's what I thought. I remembered someone had said, like, it was like a professor or something had said something like they're only native in like a really small range and that they were dispersed or something. I don't remember exactly what it was. But
yeah, no, that's interesting. I had heard like maybe some of their ranges increasing because they're like one of the most moved turtles because, you know, people will take them off roads and put them somewhere else. But I wouldn't say that they're like invasive in other places. They are native to the eastern U.S.
Okay, cool.
So outside of illegal collection, what are some other threats that are facing box turtles?
So habitat fragmentation, roads are a huge problem for turtles. They're often hit by vehicles, obviously, and then development of their habitat. You know, as we clear habitat for homes, you know, a lot of animals lose what they've been living in. Yeah, those are other like two big issues with box turtles.
Okay, and your research is focused on seeing if reintroduced, recovered, illegally collected turtles can fare well in the wild. Have you seen any results with that research?
Yeah, so I'm actually we have 2 years of data that we're looking at, and so these animals that were confiscated were brought to the Savannah River site. That's where the Savannah River Ecology Laboratory is. And we actually put them in this big soft release pen. And so one thing we noticed when we opened this pen so that they could move freely is that they just dispersed. They moved huge distances. I mean, one little female almost moved 2 miles away from the pen. So they did move quite a bit, but they have a majority of my turtles did settle in the same area, and they've been there for the last probably year and a half, I would say. So I still need to analyze data. I'm still working on calculating year 2 movement metrics, but it does look promising. I did just calculate their winter dormancy sites. We're looking to see if year 1 dormancy sites were close to their year 2 dormancy sites. And we're seeing that there is some fidelity there. They're kind of staying in the same area as they did the previous year. And we also, I forgot to mention, we also added these resident wild box turtles to the study so that we could compare their movements with the confiscated turtles, just to see if our confiscated turtles are acting like normal box turtles. And both of their like distances between year 1 and year 2 dormancy sites were pretty similar. So that was a good sign. But other than that, we're still looking at our data before we can really confirm if it's, you know, successful or not.
So do you radio track these turtles? Is that your form of tracking them then?
Yes. So before we open the pen for them to roam freely on the site, we actually put transmitters on 35 turtles, and I tracked them twice weekly since then, and they really gave me a run for my money. You know, people don't realize it, but turtles move really fast and they can swim. Eastern box turtles are more aquatic than people realize. I had several turtles swim across a sizable creek. This creek is pretty wide in some areas and goes over my head, which I found out, unfortunately, whenever I was tracking them. So yeah, that's how we're tracking their movements, is we use these transmitters, and yeah, we're tracking them twice weekly, and then we're using the coordinates that I collected to analyze these movement metrics or the movement data.
Now, obviously, you don't want the natural populations to decline, but do they have major ecological roles, the box turtle?
Yeah, so they're big with like seed dispersal. I was reading that I think they disperse like mayapple seeds, so they're really important in that sense. And yeah, so they are important to the environment. They also serve as like food for other animals too, and yeah, they're important.
Let's see. So have there been any other things that have affected these reintroduced turtles? Like, is there any like signs of diseases or malnourishment that seem to have affected them?
Yeah, so that's something we're looking at. it's not just movement, but also health and survival. So when we first got these animals and before they were put out in this soft release pen, we got swabs and just did an overall like health check on them. And so currently these swabs are actually being analyzed at a university in Illinois. And we're going to see if there's any pathogens that may be present in these animals. When they did arrive, they weren't in very good condition. They were found in like these tubs out in the sun with no water. So they weren't in very good health when they were confiscated. So there were some that kind of suffered from that, but yeah, so yeah, there are concerns for pathogens or diseases, but yeah, that's something I'm looking at for my study.
And have you noticed any like higher morbidity rate among the reintroduced versus the natives?
Yes, so we haven't lost any resident turtles from the study, but we did lose some individuals that were confiscated. And some of that was due to predation. So I think coyotes and raccoons, they love turtles. So some of them did die because of that, but yeah.
I didn't know coyotes and raccoons could crack through a turtle shell.
Yeah, they can. And that's something we did with the soft release pen. We kept these animals in this pen for about 7 months, and we had game cameras, and we saw all kinds of things. Raccoons and coyotes were the main predator, but we also saw possums and bobcats even. So yeah, they like to eat turtles, coyotes and raccoons especially.
Have you had issues with people hitting box turtles?
Like on roads or anything?
Yeah. Roads, yeah.
Yeah, so the Savannah River site is owned by the Department of Energy, and so it's a protected site. You have to like have a badge to get into it, and you have to like call out to be on the property. If you don't, like, they'll come find you with a helicopter and like other security. So it's this protected site. So there's not a lot of people driving where my turtles are at. Okay. So yeah, none of mine had to deal with. We do have like a little forestry road that we use to get to the site, but it's only us there, so we didn't have any problems with that, luckily.
Now, are they pretty hardy towards different environments? So, like you were saying, like China's a big place for the receiving turtles. If they were released in an area like that, like, are they pretty hardy as being able to survive in different kind of environments like that, or are they pretty susceptible?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm not sure what the climate is there, but I think they could do well as long as it's warm and it doesn't, get too cold. But I imagine that they probably wouldn't do well in China because they just don't have like or whatever place they might be like shipped to, because they don't have like their native food or anything like that.
Actually, I remember from our interview with Kevin Messenger, he was talking about how really southern China, the habitat and ecology there is almost indistinguishable from large parts of the southeast U.S.
Oh, really? Huh. I wouldn't expect that. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's like apparently even the same trees and very similar herpetofauna as well.
Wow.
Actually, I think there's a species of turtle in China. It's called the Chinese box turtle.
Yeah, they do have box turtles there. But yeah, that's really cool.
So other than being seed dispersers and being potential prey, what other role in the environment do box turtles play with like basically what's their diet consist of in the wild?
What does their diet consist of?
Yeah.
Yeah, so box turtles I'm finding really eat anything. I found a lot of mine eating mushrooms. Some were eating millipedes, but they have been documented to eat like roadkill. And I've seen actual like video footage of one eating a snake. So I think they are. Yeah, I was very surprised. I was like, what is going on? So I think they're very opportunistic. And heard of one eating a spadefoot toad. So I think they'll snatch up whatever they can if it's convenient. But a lot of mine were eating mushrooms whenever I found them. Yeah, so.
Do you know why they specifically evolved to have that hinged door to shut them in? Because like obviously not all turtles and tortoises have that. Only the box do. That I'm aware of, at least. Why would they have it and not anything else?
That's a good question. I'm not really sure why they specifically would have developed that, but I mean, yeah, it's perfect for protection against predators because once they get shut in that shell, you can't see them again. Their arms and legs are tucked in and their heads fully tucked in. So I don't know why they specifically evolved that way, but I mean, yeah, it is great against predation.
So you mentioned you were looking at their like estivation hibernation sites. So what do box turtles? What type of like little microhabitat do box turtles usually use to brumate?
Yeah, so a lot of my turtles actually bury themselves deep in like mud. We found a lot buried between the roots of trees. And they would be like in water over the winter too. It was really interesting. Yeah, so they're mostly like, yeah, buried in mud between the roots of trees is where we found our confiscated and resident turtles.
And
You
is
would
there any other like preferred habitats uh, preferred microhabitats they tend to hang out in during the rest of the year?
Yeah, so during the summer, you can find them in floodplain habitat. That was really surprising to me. I thought they'd be more in like hardwood forest, but they love swampy habitat. And so you can find them buried in mud, chilling out in like creeks and stuff. So yeah, a lot of mine on the Savannah River site anyway were in floodplains or swampy areas.
did um you said you would find them overwintering in water, like, or they were just like in the water in the winter.
So the one I'm thinking of specifically, so it was buried in between roots, like deep down, and when we dug it up, there was actually water at the bottom of this hole it had made. So it wasn't like fully submerged, but it was in the water to an extent.
Which is still
Um,
pretty strange.
yeah, we found that really interesting. Yeah, wasn't expecting that.
Now they when they if they don't dig burrows, do they? They find burrows.
They don't. They do dig to an extent. I mean, they dig into the mud. But I want to say they use all kinds of things. I've found turtles in like hollowed out logs to hide in. They're a lot of times you can find them under vegetation. I don't really think they really burrow. But they do dig a little bit. It's called a form, is what they make, and they make this little indent with their shells. And but a lot of time it's not like technically a burrow. It's just like a little kind of dugout with some leaf litter covering them. But yeah.
And nowhere near as proficient digger as say like a sulcata tortoise or anything like that.
Sorry, what?
They're nowhere near as proficient a digger as say a sulcata tortoise or something like
Oh
that.
no, yeah, no, nothing like that, or like a gopher tortoise or anything. They can dig, but not. They don't dig burrows or anything.
So, what are some other unique anatomical features of box turtles other than like their hinging shells?
Yeah, so box turtles are pretty strange. They can, one thing that's really neat in females is that they can actually store sperm for a couple of years. And they can actually, within a clutch, have different, the babies will have like different fathers. So they can, use, different sperm. And then they can also, we think of reptiles as something that needs constant warmth to survive, which is true. But turtles can, box turtles anyway, can really withstand crazy temperatures. Box turtles can freeze about a little over 50% of their body water, and then for about like 50 hours, I think, and then they can come back from that. They found ice surrounding internal organs, so they can basically like freeze and then thaw out.
Kind of like a wood frog?
Yeah. I'm not quite sure what allows them to do that, but yeah, it's really neat.
That is really neat. But it's only for 50 hours that they can do that for?
I think that's what I was reading. It can't be any more than 50 hours that they can remain at that kind of temperature, but they can withstand, you know, a long time of being cold.
That's kind of a strange something to develop, you know, like something that complex. I feel like that's something complex to develop if it only lasts for 50 hours. I mean, 50 hours is a long time, but it's not like the wood frog that does it for an entire winter, you know?
Yeah, no. Yeah, it is strange, but you know, it kind of allows them to withstand those really cold days, and then, you know, when it warms back up, you know, they can kind of move around, dig deeper probably, to get a little warmer over the winter. But yeah, it's very strange.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
guess
back
to
up.
survive like the strange like cold snaps that you get, like the really cold snaps that you get every once in a while.
Yeah,
Sorry, what?
I was just saying, like, I guess it's to help survive, like like in the southeast when you get those random really cold snaps for those
Hmm.
brief periods to survive those and get through that.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, they range all the way up around where I live, so up here it's freezing right now. So
Yeah.
we do experience occasional really cold snaps that usually only last a few days. So kind of makes sense that they'd be able to withstand a few days worth of incredibly cold temps, at
Hmm.
least their northern extent of their range.
Hmm. Yeah.
Do you find that there's that northern ranged box turtles can do that more than southern ranged, or?
That's a good question. You know, I'm not really sure how it differs between their, you know, where they're at in their range. But that's a
Yeah.
good question.
Also, here's another one that I don't know if you've looked into this or not, but so you were talking about how the box turtles can store sperm and so a clutch can have multiple different fathers. Do you, to your knowledge, do you know if they've ever done any studies that looked into whether they can control like what sperm to give like during a fertilization to fit like a specific environment better, if that makes sense?
I don't know. That's another good question. Yeah, I know there's been studies on like different, you know, like the fathers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know how far into depth that it's gone with that. But that'd be something really cool to look at if no one has done it so far.
Would be cool.
So, is it true that box turtles will actually have different eye colors for each sex? I remember hearing that once.
So I'm learning, especially in eastern box turtles, that this isn't really reliable. So I've had really colorful females on my study. They'll have the red eyes. I'll be like, oh, that's a male. And then we look more closely and it's not, it's female. And so the best way to really tell between males and females is that like body shape. So females are like really round, kind of like a hockey puck, and then males are more elongated, like oval shaped. And then the the males will have that concavity in their plastrons, like a little soup bowl, basically.
Reverse soup bowl.
Yeah. So that's the best way. Besides getting a little personal with them, if you don't want to do that, you just look at their body shape and then see if they have that little concavity.
Now, a lot of reptiles can be hermaphroditic if they're in an area where there's not a lot of mates around. Can box turtles do that?
That's a good question. I don't think so, but I haven't really looked into that, so I'm not sure, but I don't think so.
Yeah, because I remember when I was a kid, actually how I learned that was I caught an eastern fence lizard, and it had the really bright blue coloration on its sides and on its neck. So I was like, oh, that's a cool male. And then I left to go to this camp for a week, so I told my parents to feed them, which they didn't. And so I came back and it was dead. And being a nerd, I was like, hey, I'll dissect it and check it out. And it had a bunch of eggs in it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I looked into it, and I'm assuming it was because it was during breeding season and it was stuck in a cage. It asexually reproduced and stuff. So, but I was wondering if maybe if you like the box turtles that you're finding that look female but are males or vice versa, maybe it's because of that or.
Yeah, that's another good question. I'm not really sure. I don't think box turtles do that, but I could be wrong. I haven't looked into it enough.
So, other than your research, do you do any like herping or anything like that on the side?
Yeah, so I do a lot of road cruising. I'll go drive around, look and see if any snakes are out, and I go on hikes a lot, and I'm probably look like the weirdo in the park when I'm flipping logs, and everyone's like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
So yeah, I will. I do go herping because I really enjoy like seeing like reptiles and amphibians. So I'll try and look for them whenever I can.
Any particular species you tend to find around your research area?
um, so that was the really fun part about my study was that I was always out in the woods looking for turtles, and I would always run into other things. And one of the coolest things I ran into 5 timber rattlesnakes.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, it was so cool. Wasted so much time because I just admired them for like 20 minutes. It was so cool. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of them on my research site. And yeah, they were really gorgeous. So that was really cool to see. I found some glass lizards on site, some really big adults, which is kind of rare to find there. So yeah, there's a lot of cool reptile and amphibian species on my research site.
So you mentioned the box turtles being aquatic or more aquatic than most people realize. I didn't realize they were really aquatic at all. I mean, I know they could go in water, but I didn't realize they were like aquatic at all. Are they like actually like swimming around, or is it more like they're getting into the water, or?
So, I really say they're more aquatic because I wasn't expecting them to be completely like buried in mud or being submersed in water. And that's where I would find a lot of them. If they weren't basking, they were just hanging out in
Interesting.
like little like floodplain areas. And I did, whenever my study first started, there was that creek that ran through my site, and I had some turtles cross that creek. And they swam across. It was a very wide creek. So they are considered terrestrial, but I just don't think people realize like how much they really do like to like soak in water, and they can swim. They look derpy probably when they swim. Not very graceful like a slider or something, but they can do it.
Unfortunately, down here in Florida, a lot of people take gopher tortoises and toss them in the water because they think they're turtles and can swim, and they toss them in there. And they either kind of just like bob or they don't do well. So
Yeah, no, that's so unfortunate. Yeah, I've definitely heard of people doing that with gopher tortoises, and it's really sad. It's like, please don't do that.
I still don't understand how you can make that kind of a mistake, but I guess it happens.
Yeah, well, you just have to educate people and
Yeah.
hope for the best that it doesn't keep happening.
Yeah. Speaking of gopher tortoises, what exactly is the scientific difference between a turtle and a tortoise?
Oh, I thought you might ask me this, and I was like, I don't know how to answer that because it's
My apologies.
no, it's good. It's kind of like that, like not all turtles are tortoises, but all tortoises are turtles. It's like one of those. It's they just, to me, they look different, but I couldn't really tell you all the characteristics to look for to describe the two. It's hard for me to explain.
From what someone once explained it to me this way, they said that the difference is mainly in the bone structure of the front legs. Is that true, or have you?
Yeah, I'm not sure. This is something I need to look into because people have asked me this, and every time I'm like, they're different. They just are.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
don't explain it.
But I also heard, so the same person also said that over in Australia, they said, and we should have asked some of our Australian people that we've had on here, Nate, but they said over in Australia, that they consider sea turtles to be turtles and everything else is a tortoise. So like a box turtle would be a tortoise, and like a red ear slider they consider tortoises. Only sea
Oh,
turtles are actually tortoises or turtles. So
interesting.
yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah. My understanding is that a lot of like turtles are aquatic, and then a lot of tortoises are like terrestrial. So that's probably a
Yeah.
good difference to look at too. But I don't know like characteristic wise really how to explain it.
And then there's box turtles existing there that throw a wrench into the whole system.
Yeah.
Yeah, has there been any looks? Because nowadays, especially with like genetics and stuff, everyone likes to make everything into some other species or some species. Has there been any looked into taxonomy of box turtles of considering them tortoises? Because they're very similar, at least in my opinion. I don't, you're probably more of an expert on that, but
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Yeah, I imagine they have looked into that, but yeah, I haven't seen anything on it. Um,
So, other than your herping and research, you're also a bit of a wildlife artist as well. You want to go into that at all?
oh, a wildlife artist?
Well, artist, I guess, but
No, no, I was to make sure I heard you correctly. Yeah, I like to draw mainly reptiles and amphibians, but I've been drawing ever since I could pick up a pencil. My family is pretty artistic. My mom is a really good artist, and my sisters are too. And yeah, I really enjoy it. I sell like stickers with like reptiles and amphibians on them. But yeah, I've always really liked drawing, and it's nice to draw reptiles and amphibians because I feel like they don't normally get the spotlight. So
yeah, you recently did a really nice piece on a alligator gar skull. It was pretty sick looking.
oh, thank you. Yeah, I love skulls too. Normal biologist.
Same here.
Yeah, but I just really enjoy drawing skulls and then like the native like flora that you would find them with. So yeah, I really enjoy art. So
Yeah, in high school, I had a Bio 2 class where we actually had a, since it wasn't a required course, the teacher could basically teach whatever he wanted to. So we mostly taught like native natural history. So we actually had a skull course where we learned all about identifying mammal skulls. And we actually got to preserve some of our own skulls.
oh, that's so cool.
And we also had to draw birds, so mixture of skull and art. But
Okay, that's awesome.
not to toot my own horn.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
so obviously you study box turtles now, but you said your first love was with toads and frogs and stuff like that. Is that still more of your favorite thing? Is the frog aspect? Or are you big into turtles now? Is that your thing now?
Well, I would say probably my most favorite are snakes.
Snakes, okay.
Yes, I love snakes. I think they're really interesting. I mean, I love all reptiles and amphibians,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
snakes
yeah.
are what interest me the most. Uh, yeah, I actually worked on a project in Michigan where I tracked eastern Massasauga rattlesnakes.
Oh, nice.
That's cool. Yeah.
And that was a really fun job. A lot of hard work because snakes like to move.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a really neat experience because I got to learn how to handle venomous snakes. So yeah, my first love is I do love snakes. But turtles are close second. And I will always love toads. They look so grumpy, and I just love them so much. So I'll always enjoy finding a toad.
Even a cane toad?
Do you know? Oh, cane toad.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, even cane toads, I like them too. I know they're pretty invasive in places, but
So you did radio telemetry with Eastern Massasaugas up in Michigan. What were we doing that for? Just for like
yeah. So it was after I graduated with my bachelor's, I was a seasonal technician. I moved around a lot, and so one of those places I went to was Michigan for the rattlesnakes, and we were looking at it was on a military base, and a lot of those snakes had to be removed from certain areas where soldiers were at, and so we're trying to see if animals being moved from their original location had any effects on their movements, because they were brought to another site on that military base and released, and we want to see how they did after they were translocated.
What's the Massasauga's range in Michigan? Because I know Michigan gets really cold. Like, are they just in the southern part, or can they be in the northern part of Michigan?
Well, I know they range all the way up to Canada as well. So.
Oh, do they really?
Yeah, they're all the way up along the north side of like Lake Erie and Lake Huron. So.
That's pretty impressive. I guess they can only be active for like a few months out of the year because it's so cold up in there.
Yeah, it gets pretty cold up there.
Actually, I saw a pretty interesting post from someone a few days ago where it was like back in November and they found this garter snake out basking. It's like 50 degrees outside, and they took a laser temperature measure and put it on the garter snake, and it was like 80 degrees.
Oh, wow.
Just from basking.
That's amazing.
That is amazing. I remember on Christmas Day once I saw a bunch of it. There's this along the side of my house in the siding. There's always brown anoles and or green anoles and five-line skinks that poke their head outside of the siding and stuff, and they'll bask along the side of the house there. And I remember seeing some on Christmas Day, and I was like, "This is back in Georgia," but it was actually kind of cold out. It was like 50s. It was like mid to low 50s, and they were poking their heads out, which I thought was pretty incredible. And it was like overcast. It was cloudy outside. It wasn't like there was a lot of sun, so I thought that was pretty strange.
So cool.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, you got any other questions?
No, I think that's all my questions.
Okay, Emma, you want to close out with anything before we end here?
Oh, well, just thanks for having me, and thanks for allowing me to talk about my project and my love for reptiles and amphibians. So thanks for having me.
It's been a blast for me, so I can say that for certain.
Definitely. It's fun. Yeah. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much.